Buying new furniture, hauling it home, and realizing it doesn't actually fit through your front door is incredibly frustrating. For most of us, an oversight like that results in a returned item and a wasted delivery fee. But in 2014, France's National Railway Company, SNCF, made the exact same miscalculation. They ordered a fleet of 2,000 brand new trains for roughly $20 billion. But when the rolling stock arrived, SNCF engineers realized the new cars were physically too wide to fit the platforms at over 1,000 of their older stations. We tend to assume that monumental financial losses require complex market crashes or highly sophisticated technological failures, yet SNCF is hardly alone. From space exploration to global media, many of the largest financial disasters in history began with this same kind of preventable oversight. The French rail disaster happened because the operator only measured newer transit hubs. They simply forgot to cross-reference their new train dimensions with the narrower platforms of rural stations built before 1980. To fix it, SNCF had to quietly spend roughly $60 million chipping away at concrete platforms just to allow their new trains to squeeze through. A lack of data verification is expensive on Earth, but it gets worse in a vacuum. In 1999, NASA launched the $125 million Mars Climate Orbiter. The spacecraft completed a perfectly smooth 9-month journey to the red planet, only to completely disintegrate the moment it entered the Martian atmosphere. This diagram illustrates the failure. Lockheed Martin programmed thrust data using imperial pound force seconds. NASA software expected metric Newton seconds. Because nobody caught the mismatch, the trajectory overshot. The orbiter was sent 100 kilometers too low, hitting the atmosphere and instantly incinerating. When operating at a massive scale, skipping a basic, standardized verification process can instantly vaporize years of human labor and hundreds of millions of dollars. A math error is an accident. An error in judgment requires active participation. In the year 2000, physical video rentals were at their peak, and Blockbuster confidently dominated the market. That year, a man named Reed Hastings walked into Blockbuster's headquarters. He offered to sell his entire mail-order DVD company to them for a mere $50 million. Blockbuster dismissed the offer, believing their physical storefronts were invincible. Today, Blockbuster is bankrupt, and that mail-order company, Netflix, is a streaming titan worth over $150 billion. Blockbuster's executives failed to imagine a future where their entire physical model could be disrupted. Failing to imagine the future is costly, but failing to understand an asset you already bought is even worse. In the early 1990s, Quaker Oats spent $1.7 billion to acquire the beverage company Snapple. Instead of leaning into the quirky, indie identity that made Snapple popular to begin with, Quaker attempted to standardize and mainstream the brand. Sales plummeted, and Quaker was forced to sell Snapple 3 years later for just $300 million. Effectively burning $1.4 billion. But the absolute peak of cultural clash happened in 2000 with the $165 billion merger between AOL and Time Warner. The boardrooms assumed that mashing together AOL's massive internet audience with Time Warner's legacy media content would create an unstoppable monopoly. They ignored the fact that the two organizations had entirely incompatible corporate cultures and strategies. The integration efforts failed at every level, resulting in over $200 billion in compounding losses and write-downs. Corporate dominance rarely survives the assumption that past success guarantees the future. There is a darker category of error. These are situations where engineers and executives understand the rules perfectly well, but actively build systems to bypass them. In 2015, the Dieselgate scandal exposed that Volkswagen engineers deliberately programmed the engine control software in 11 million vehicles to secretly reduce emissions only when the cars were undergoing official testing. In normal use, those cars pumped out up to 40 times the legal limit of pollutants. This deception cost the company $34 billion in fines and refits, while excess pollution from diesel vehicles has been linked to an estimated 124,000 premature deaths across Europe. The oil industry saw its own equivalent of catastrophic negligence in April 2010 off the Gulf Coast. The Deepwater Horizon rig exploded, killing 11 people and spewing nearly 134 million gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. BP provisioned over $65 billion for the cleanup and settlements, leaving a devastated local ecosystem in its wake. Yet the absolute peak of expensive human error occurred on April 26, 1986. Operators at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine were running a dangerous simulation test to see how the reactor would cool during blackout conditions. During the test, reactor power dropped accidentally. Rather than halting the operation, the operators bypassed safety protocols and pushed forward anyway. The result was an uncontrollable power surge that blew reactor number 4 wide open. By the time the smoke cleared, the total cost reached an estimated $700 billion, a figure larger than the annual GDP of most nations on Earth. This counter adds up the damage. Between the write-downs of AOL, the settlements of BP, the fines of Volkswagen, and the cleanup of Chernobyl, the combined cost of these specific mistakes easily pushes past $1 trillion. But the financial data misses the point. The true cost of these errors is measured in lost lives, shattered communities, and permanently poisoned landscapes. Whether it was a team failing to communicate measurements or an operator ignoring a warning light, these events shared a common origin, a moment where someone assumed they knew better than the data. It was the cost of refusing to hit pause. As our technology scales up, the blast radius of a single human mistake scales right along with it. Honest communication and a willingness to verify the facts are the only true safeguards we have against the next billion-dollar catastrophe.